Welcome to PLM and Vinyl, the webcast for everyone interested in SAP PLM and surrounding topics. In our show, you will see and hear the latest updates from SAP, CENIT and our partner products, along with some customer interviews. And now meet your hosts, Paul Cassidy and Sascha Schwenker.
Welcome to the second part of our interview with Jeff Crawford from Harris Products Group. Today we talk about key workflow design decisions, people and change management, and the benefits of the PLM implementation at Harris Products Group.
So in the previous section we talked about the workflow, we just talked about the change management. We have one topic about the workflow design. Can you tell us a little bit about the key decisions, what drives the workflow, how we designed the workflow, what was the thought process behind this, and what are maybe some lessons learned we got out of this already?
Okay. Workflow design is a tricky thing, especially when you have multiple locations, and for better or for worse, they all have their own way of getting the same work done.
Yeah, I remember when we designed the first site, the European guys, they want to have everything very simplified because they embody in one person several functionalities, right, versus in the US it's more spread out into different agents, workflow agents, different persons.
Right. So what we tried to do was, we didn't want to mandate you will all use the same process exactly. That didn't make sense for us. So we started with two, as we mentioned before, we had two workflows. Yep. And they were designed to be broad in scope, flexible in terms of who you could assign to the workflow. And I think what we have found is, while that conceptually made sense, in the end I think we will end up breaking some of those down into more specific workflows. For instance, we have a specials process now that really needs to be streamlined with only about 3 or 4 people in it.
Yeah.
And so we're going to create a workflow for that. So it's a balancing act between having, because you could have a workflow for every single different document type if you wanted to, and that's just probably too many. That's lots of maintenance if you do that. So I guess the other lesson there is you don't really know what you don't know when you first start to design workflows. So my advice would be to maybe start a little more simply to get your feet wet, and then if you need to be more complex or more expansive in the workflow, you can go in that direction. The other thing I think that's important is who owns the workflows.
Yeah. So you mean with who owns who is the business leader for this one, or more from the IT side, who is managing the workflow, who's doing changes?
Yeah, both of them.
Both sides, okay.
Both, because obviously there's a business perspective of the workflow, and then there's the underlying technical requirements, which in the end is a combination of CENIT Connect APM, and on the SAP side you have to do, in some cases, a little bit of S-Pro work.
Sure, yes.
So when we started, IT picked up that role. In part because we wanted to be able to support our user community in the end. Right now we're shifting the ownership back to engineering, and some of your other clients, I think they started in engineering to begin with.
Yes.
The other wrinkle for us is, because Lincoln runs a single worldwide instance of SAP, we tightly control who can make changes to the system. So any changes we need where we need S-Pro work, somebody in our corporate office would do that for us.
Yeah.
But the workflow, CENIT Connect APM changes, our engineering systems manager is going to do going forward.
Yeah. So that means if you really have baseline changes, you would like to create a new use case, for example, or have new attributes in the workflow, this is global IT. But if you do a change to the real flow, to the person-to-person flow, this is in the hands of the local business person.
Yes.
Okay.
So Jeff, we've talked about some of the highlights of the project. Let's talk about one of the classic pain points on a PLM project, or really any IT project: data migration. So for me, the interesting thing is, we all talked before the project kicked off about data migration, that there was a strong chance the data was not as clean as you thought. So what did you? So you were prepared for that, but were you prepared for that?
No, we really weren't. I mean, as you guys said, you all told us, data migration is dirty business, and that was true for us. And it was, it wasn't so bad on the Europe side because they were working from a system that enforced a certain amount of discipline.
Yeah, they had already database.
Yeah, they already had an underlying database. On the U.S. side, we were moving from AutoCAD, and so what you find is SAP is very demanding about putting documents in the system such that you can't have a model that has broken links to the parts. And if you do, it won't load them. So you have to go through the effort, and you can't really do it programmatically to clean up those links and clean up the data before you can successfully load it.
Yep.
I guess that's a good enforced discipline by the system, though.
Yes, definitely. The problem is you don't know how much cleanup work you're going to have to do because, for instance, you do a mock load and you find certain things that are broken, so you correct those, and then that leads you to other things that may be broken. So you spend a lot of engineering time taking the list and cleaning up the things that the system finds for you, but you don't really know, is it, do I need a couple of weeks, a couple of months, longer than that? And in our case, we don't have a lot of engineers, so we were taking their time from doing regular engineering work to clean up the data so that we could load it into the system. It's also something that you can't easily outsource to somebody else.
Yeah, because they have no clue about your data structure.
They don't know your parts, they don't know your products, they don't know, okay, here's a broken link, well, what do I link it to? They don't have any context to help you with that. So it's one of those that almost, you'd almost say if we had known at the beginning what we ended up learning, it might be enough to scare you off from doing the project, but you just have to persevere and get it done because the benefits on the backside are significant.
Yeah.
No pain, no gain.
Do you remember how many data loads we did at the end? I know it was way past I think we scheduled at the beginning the normal 3 mock loads into the different systems. Do you remember how many mock loads we did at the end?
We probably did 9, 10, I don't know, somewhere in there, till we got it down to a small manageable number. We said, okay, that's good enough.
That's good. We have clean data. Let's get it in.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about change management before, but let's talk about what's the impact on the people, on your staff after implementing the new solution. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah. There's some important cultural changes that go on. If you're in an organization that has traditional engineers and draftsmen, the new solution facilitates a total engineering concept so that you don't really have a need for traditional draftsmen that only just make a simple change to a drawing. The draftsmen now use SolidWorks as an example, and they do the entire change process. So what we found is that some of our younger engineers gravitated to that immediately. In part because that's the way they were taught in school. Some of our older folks, it was a little more of a struggle, but they've all gotten it. But it's a new way for them of doing business that they hadn't done before.
Yep.
So we have that. Then there's the natural resistance to structure. A workflow in and of itself provides structure around a business process. Well, for people that are used to doing what they want whenever they want, some of them will fight back on that. And so what you're trading off is, a defined, repeatable process, which is important in any business. And you may give up a tiny bit of speed. You may give up a tiny bit of individual discretion, but is overshadowed by the need to have a process that everybody can follow. And then, as we talked about data migration, it can be exhausting work.
Oh yeah.
So the engineers get tired because I would say it's almost mind-numbing having to go in and
to a couple of hundred files
or
clean up.
1,000 files. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So those are things to be aware of as you go into a project like this.
Jeff, let's talk about the learning points and actually what was the the name of our presentation.
Well, it was the anatomy
Of a PLM implementation.
So being
tell us a
creative
little
guys, we decided to have anatomy. For those of you that are art fans, this is a Da Vinci drawing called the Vitruvian Man, circa 1450.
Yep. And we make a quiz, or you made a quiz during the presentation. We raffled off some Starbucks gift cards. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure somebody Googled it to get it correct, but anyway.
Well, they said they didn't, but who knows?
Yep.
But as we've talked about, the vision, having a vision is kind of the brains behind the project. You have document management, which are really the feet. I mean, everything sits on top of document.
The foundation,
basically. The foundation,
yep.
Yes. In your hands, you have CAD integration. That's how you actually make the changes to the documents. The heart and soul, the chest, is the workflow because it drives what you do. We've talked about data migration and how if you're not prepared for that, it will literally cut you off at the knees.
Yeah.
And then surrounding the entire project is the concept of change management. And it's again, as I said earlier, it's much more than just a technical project.
So Jeff, let's go for the big finish here. Let's take it up a notch and talk about benefits and possibilities.
Okay. All right. One of the benefits that we wanted to get was the ability to have a common engineering database, which we have that now. We can do engineering anywhere that we want or anywhere that we need to. The thing that we're now working our way through is, for instance, our sister plants between the U.S. and Europe have similar products, or actually in many cases the exact same products. So now we're better able to merge those into one set of models and parts and drawings. So that's a benefit to us. We talked a little bit earlier about eliminating paperwork on the shop floor.
Yep.
We've done that, so we're pretty happy with those things. But again, we've only been in this now about 9 months, so we're still learning and getting more comfortable with the solution. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to create a new workflow for specials that's very streamlined. Some of the things that in the future, I think that we'll take a look at are the engineering control center. It wasn't available for us at the time we got started.
Yep.
One of the big things I don't think that we realized that this has positioned us for is a lot of our products are configurable. And we were not using the SAP variant configurator at all. And because we've now collected and structured all our engineering data, we're now well positioned to go implement the variant configurator, which will save us more time because a lot of the small engineering changes they make are because we're not using
a real configuration tool.
Yes,
yep.
That's right.
Makes sense.
In the future, I can see us going away from written work instructions to visual work instructions, either using Visual Enterprise in SAP or even little movie vignettes that we can put into the document management system. Because from its perspective, a little movie is just another document type, and so we can use that if we want.
Yeah, and we have the underlying architecture already in place. So
yes.
the Visual Enterprise components are already running. We are creating already Visual Enterprise files. So it would be just a small step to the work instructions from here on. Yep, makes sense.
And then finally, and this is maybe not as applicable everywhere, but since we use SolidWorks, they have a SolidWorks inspection module, which will basically define the inspection characteristics and the values that you can do that at the time you're doing the drawing. So it produces a nice Excel-style inspection plan, if you will. And we're thinking, we're moving towards SAP quality management, and we're thinking, gee, wouldn't it be nice if we could take an inspection plan directly out of SolidWorks, right off the drawing, and feed it right into SAP? So we're exploring that as a potential future enhancement that we might do.
So that means we have room for the next show in a year, for example?
Maybe.
Oh, great.
So talk about a life cycle. Like we met about 5 years ago at this event.
Yes.
And you came along to a presentation given by another one of our customers, and that's how you kind of met us and introduced yourself, and here you are 5 years later, you're the presenter, and hopefully we'll get to meet some new customers that can join our community as we go forward. So quite the turning full circle.
Yes. Yeah, well, you should also mention that CENIT's recently formed a users group.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I think that's going to be good for the user community and good
Yeah.
for your product. So we're real happy about that.
Great. And we look forward to you contributing on that. You were one of the founding members and pushed strongly for that. So thank you for that, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Jeffrey, we were overjoyed to meet you here today. You've been making quite a name all around the place. Healing cripples, raising from the dead.
I would say we cut it here, okay?
So,
Jeff,
great job
thank
today,
you very
Jeff.
much.
Superb.
All right, you're
It was
welcome.
great. Thanks for all your support. And
Thank you, guys.
let's see what we can bring up in the next show, Paul.
Yep.
So next time we'll be probably again in the office, not in a hotel room here at the ASAC.
The luxury of Florida will be left behind and we'll be back to hard graft.
All right, everybody. Thanks very much for
Thanks,
listening.
everyone. Yep.
And again, special thanks to Jeff here.
Thank you, guys.